Now let's take a look at ACS Prelim 2021 Paper 1 Question 4. In order to solve the equation e raised to the power of x minus 1 equals to square root x, a suitable straight line has to be drawn on the same set of axes as the graph of y equal to ln x. Find the equation of the straight line. Now let's focus on the question here. You are given that y equal to ln x has to be drawn as one of the graph. So the idea is that we're going to try to arrange this equation here so that ln x will appear either on the right hand side or the left hand side, okay? So now I'm going to show you two ways you can do this. So the first way is usually what most students will do, because they see an e here, you will straight take ln both sides, which is okay, all right? So let's take ln both sides here and see what happened. When you take ln on e, they will get cancelled, so you're left with x minus 1. All right, so I'm going to take ln on the right hand side as well. So this one here, we need ln x, not ln square root x, so we have to deal with the square root. And we all know square root is raised to power half, and based on logarithm law, I'm going to bring the half to the front, okay? So now we have x minus 1 equals to half ln x. Next, I need ln x, not this half, so I'm going to multiply to both sides. So be careful here, you have two terms, so we're going to get 2x minus 2 equals to ln x. Right here, on the right, you already have this graph y equal to ln x, which is what is written in the question. So now, our answer for the straight line is going to be this one here. So I'm going to answer, therefore, the straight line that need to be added is this y equals to 2x minus 2. That's the answer for question part 1. Now let's take a look at the second method that you could use. If you see this one here, that I need ln x, not the square root. So the first step could be squaring this both sides. You just need to be careful of squaring the exponent because it already have a power over here. When you square it, power 2, you have to multiply the 2, these two terms here. Alright, so I'll have e power of 2x minus 2 equals to x. Squaring both sides, if you can't see, is actually like this here. So I'm going to multiply the 2 in for the two terms on the power side. Alright, so next, let's take ln both sides. So you get 2x minus 2 equal to ln x. Now notice, this one is much shorter. If you can see that you do not want the square root, you can handle it as your first step instead of taking ln as your first step. Okay? Now, let's move on to question part 2. On the same axis, sketch and label the graphs of y equal to ln x and the straight line from part 1. Now, let's take a look at logarithm graph here. Logarithm graph has a special features of asymptote. How do you know what asymptote is? Remember, logarithm cannot take 0 over here. So taking this x equate to 0, this one will be asymptote of your graph. Now, we all know that x equals to 0 is also the y-axis, which is this line over here. So you do not need to add anything else. Next, if asymptote start with the label of x, I will go on to find x-intercept. To find x-intercept, we are going to equate y to 0. So putting 0 here, I'm solving ln x equals to 0. To handle ln, we take e both sides. So take e here, it's get cancelled. Take e 0, answer will be 1. So we know x-intercept is 1. Let me just put in here, 1. So let's say if you do not know how the logarithm graph will behave, because asymptote is this y-axis, you could draw something like this or you could draw something like this, okay? So what you can do is that just take your calculator and test the value on the left on the right. So I'm going to test 0.5 and 1.5 from my calculator and see what value will I be getting. So the calculator answer here, I will have ln 0.5 as negative 0.693 and 0.405 for ln of 1.5. So I know on the left hand side my graph should be below x-axis, on the right is above. So I know that I will sketch a graph like this way, below x-axis first, then above x-axis with a bending, okay? A bending over here. So now, these two are just testing point. So you know that I test roughly here, okay? So the two dot in red. Next, let's move on to this straight line graph here. Straight line graph, I usually like to use intercepts. If you can use other points, that's okay too. So I'm going to plot 2 points, one using x at 0. The second point I will find is use y at 0, okay? So I'm going to calculate one by one. When I put x at 0 over here, calculation, 2 times 0 minus 2 will give me negative 2. I fill in here. Next, I put 0 at y position. 0 equals 2x minus 2. Go on to solve this one. 2 equals to 2x. X is 1. Fill in here. Okay? I have these 2 points. Notice this point is just this point here. 1, 0. I need to add this one. Let's say it's roughly over here. 0, negative 2. Adding a straight line from this point to this point will give you this graph over here. Y equal 2x minus 2. This is your graph of ln x from just now, okay? So this graph here, the common point is the 1, 0, okay? So the red one, you do not have to show. So I was just telling you that you can use a point to test it out. So your graph should be this two graph here without the red guidance point, okay? That is just for you to do a testing so you get a correct logarithm graph if you do not know how a logarithm graph will behave, okay?